Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. I'm very excited today to finally be sharing with you the game that I've been working on for several months at this point. 2025 was finally the year when I went back to game development after a very long hiatus, and the game that I'm going to be sharing with you today is a 3D turn-based combat game that I'm developing right now in Godot. I don't have a name for the game so far, but the code name that I've been using throughout this project is Robotino 3D. This project originally started as a 2D game that I called Robotino simply because I had a small robot. For those of you who've been here, part of this channel for a while, you know that I like robots, sci-fi themed stuff in general. And I had the sprites from the Cookie Master game that I worked on several years ago, and so that was sort of the starting point for this new project. But then quickly I wanted to really move from 2D to 3D. Early 2025, I was still sort of afraid to move to a 3D space, but now I've been working on this 3D game since June, I think, 2025. So it's been half a year of me sort of exploring the 3D space, tinkering around with it. And now, even though there is still a lot that I need to learn in terms of working in a 3D space, I think I've made quite a lot of progress, and I'm very happy to continuing this learning experience moving into 2026. In Robotino 3D, there are two major aspects of the game. On one side is the 3D exploration, while on the other side, the turn-based combat that happens within the 3D environment. The robot can move in the 3D space, can jump, can hover. Right now, since I'm still in the early development of the game, I have implemented a very easy flying system so that I can fly up and down, but the main mechanics of the game is hovering at a given height, and this is going to be the main drive to level design and exploration. The game also features full damage, so as you explore the 3D environment, you can hover at a given height, but you need to be careful about where you drop, because once you drop from the hover state, then you cannot fly back again before touching the ground. So that's why so far I've implemented this system where I'm basically displaying a raycast, and the color of the raycast represents how much damage you're going to take. And so as you hover around the area, if the raycast is green, it means that you can safely fall to the ground, and if it gets yellow, orange, and red, then you get increasingly more damage, and this should give you an indication of what it's safe or not to land for the robot. As you can see in the footage, I'm using a fixed camera. You cannot rotate freely in the 3D space. I'm using sort of a 2.5D kind of view, but the environment is fully 3D. The main inspiration for this feature is an indie game that I highly recommend that is called Crystal Project. I really like the way that Crystal Project implemented exploration with this 2.5 view. And so this was the main inspiration for the specific feature in Robotino 3D. I've also started implementing some ways for me to make the robot visible when it's hidden by geometry. There's still a long way to go in terms of displaying a silhouette behind the geometry or occluding part of the geometry. But right now what I worked on is a way to shift the camera upwards when the robot is behind the geometry. So this way you can see the robot in specific conditions. This is still a work in progress, but I'd like to combine this camera moving feature with occluding and the silhouette to make sure that exploration is very smooth and that you don't get as much bothered by the camera occluding with the geometry. In terms of the tool that I'm using to make the 3D geometry here, I'm using Trenchbroom. I'm not going to go into details of Trenchbroom in this video, but it's been a major game changer for me. I'm using Trenchbroom to not only build the 3D level, but to also do 3D design and to place entities, what are called entities, in the 3D level. What's really great with the Trenchbroom to Godot pipeline is that I can define nodes in Godot, and then I can define those as entities in Trenchbroom, and then I can just place those entities in Trenchbroom, and it very smoothly just translates into me building levels quickly and efficiently. Also, since I'd like to have a lot of verticality in this game specifically, it's very important to me that I'm able to check precisely heights of geometry to make sure that you can jump on it or hover to it at a given height. Trenchbroom has this feature, which is great, where you can shift to a 2D view of your 3D environment, and I cannot highlight enough how great this feature is. It really makes it such a major difference for me to make levels and test them. As for the textures that I use in this project, I did not draw any of those. I'm gonna add the references on screen so you can see. I purchased the tile set for the robot and the enemies, and then I found online the textures that I'm using for the 3D geometry. Before we move to the turn-based combat, I would like to also add here a big inspiration, which is the older original Tomb Raider games. I'm a 90s boy and I really love the original Tomb Raider games, and what I love in those games is the exploration aspect and the full immersion that you get in the environment and how every move is important and calculated in a way. And so I'm trying to get inspiration from those sort of blocky designs for the level, and I think that Trenchbroom is the perfect tool for that. Now let's move to the turn-based combat. One major feature of the game that I'm working on is to have the enemies visible on screen and to have the combat occur within the 3D environment. One game that was a big inspiration for me is also a bit of a niche game. It's called Witch Spring R, with great turn-based combat. All of the enemies are visible on screen in the 3D environment, and the combat itself takes place in the 3D environment. And so far I've been able to recreate that system fairly well in Godot. So what happens is that with my little robot, I can get closer to one or multiple enemies. I'll try to share here some footage where I get into combat with multiple enemies at once. Enemies enter an alert state, and in the alert state, they follow you. And then once one of the enemies interact with the robot, then combat starts, and all of the enemies that are in the alert state are initiated in the combat arena. Now, as you may have seen from all this footage, there are these little guys that follow my robot around. These are, I call them pods, but it may be more accurate to call them drones. These are basically your weapons. One of the major inspiration here was Xenoblade, more specifically Xenoblade 2, which is one of my favorite games. And I wanted here to recreate sort of that blade system. So the pods here, or drones here, they all have skills that you can use during combat. So when it's the player turn, you choose one of these pods to attack. And even though these are not implemented yet, I like to add to the combat types. So each skill will be related to a specific type of energy is what I'm thinking about. So things like kinetic energy, thermal, electric, radiation, this is sort of what I'm thinking about. So similar to things like fire, water, electric, etc. But I'm giving it more of a sci-fi theme, hence the energy types. And I also like to add some status effects similar to the break topple system that you find in Xenoblade games. So usually you inflict a first status like break, and then on top of that you chain with consecutive status effects to create a larger chain. So I'd like to implement that into this game. Something that I have implemented though at this stage is color combos. So the main inspiration for this feature here is Xenoblade X, which I thoroughly enjoyed last year. The idea here is to perform skills in a given order, and once you chain 3 colors, which will correspond to a given skill type, then you can perform a combo. And this combo here is performed regardless of whether it's the player turn or the enemy turn. Now, during the enemy turn, the player is also active. I've started implementing a dodge system. So if you press a button when the attack sort of interacts with the player, then you can dodge that and you can get an extra color for your color combo. So as you can see, the main turn-based combat system is starting to work pretty well. There is still a lot to implement, a long way to go, but I'm quite happy to have the basics of a game, and so far things are working pretty well. The 3D environment is there. I can interact with enemies in the 3D world. I can defeat the enemies, and so it's starting to look like a game. In terms of gameplay, I'm going to end this part of the video with a bit of footage of the menu that I have so far. This is still a very early stage, but I have on one side my robot and on the other side my pod/drone, and I can switch between the different drones to see all the skills that they have equipped. And something that is still a work in progress is to have equipable chips that will modify the stats of both the robots and the pods that you're using. So you can improve attack, defense, speed that will impact how effective the skills are. If you've reached this part of the video, thank you very much. I am very happy to finally be filming a YouTube video. Back in 2019, when I first started this channel, I really didn't have any expectations for it. And the channel really grew rapidly, very quickly. But then COVID happened, and 2020 through 2022, I want to say, was really rough on my side. 2020 especially, I mean, it was a hard year for everyone, but with the PhD and staying home and trying to handle a lot of things at once, things sort of fell apart, and it really did take me a couple of years to get back to a place where I feel better, especially mentally. 2022 to 2023, I finished my PhD, and I was almost on the verge of hitting a very bad burnout. And so it really did take me, I want to say, a couple of years to be where I am today. 2025 was the first year where I went back to game development, where I finally found more of a balance. I've been going to the gym, I'm eating better, and I'm now finally happy to be in a spot where, first of all, I'm enjoying doing game dev again, and I just want to share this journey with you. And again, I'm not a professional by any means. I just do it as a hobby, mostly after work and during the weekends. And I think it's a fun way to be spending my time. Plus, I get to make the game that I love, with features that I love that I can pick from all the different games, which is the fun, the best part, honestly. Like, I would love to be playing a game that has both like interesting 3D exploration, and turn-based combat, but right now there really aren't as many games, I think, that have that. And so I'm just like picking from all of the different games that I love to make the game that I would love to be playing. And with that, I wish you all a happy 2026. Feel free to subscribe to the channel if you want, or if you don't, it's fine too. And yeah, I will see you all in my next video. Bye.